welcome to this tutorial on how to make a adult size crochet checkered beanie. And yeah, I'm so excited about this one. This was highly requested on my Instagram on showing how to make the adult size. I did go ahead and already upload the child tutorial on my channel a couple days ago, so I don't know if you've already seen that. But yeah, this is gonna be basically the same idea, and hopefully I don't mess up on the way because I did that on the child tutorial. That was, I think I had added an extra row of check, like that didn't need to be there, but that was a fun little blooper. Why not? But if you're looking for a child size, I do have a video for that on my channel already. So we're going to talk about gauge, materials, and all the things that you do need. I also wanted to briefly say that there is a ton of checkered beanies out there, crochet patterns. I'm unsure why I wanted to add myself to the pot, but I figured it'd be fun, and I absolutely loved making them, so I figured maybe you guys might love making them too. If it's not your cup of tea, that is totally fine. There is plenty of other patterns out there. There's actually a bunch of free ones on Pinterest. There's I found like 3 pages worth on Etsy, so I feel like if this doesn't go the way that you had wanted it to go, there's other patterns out there available to you by other designers. I just wanted you to let you know that. Okay, let's just dive on in. I'm gonna put you up on my tripod and then go through all the, the details before we actually start crocheting. So see you there. Okay, I have you set up on my tripod. Funny story is that the previous clip that you just saw was recorded yesterday. Come to find out, I didn't have any time to record the entire video yesterday, so here I am. But let's just dive into some details. So you'll need worsted weight yarn, 2 colors. I'm using Big Twist Value from Joann. This Big Twist Party yarn is also from Joann, but it's very sadly discontinued. It's by far my favorite, like variegated, like multicolor yarn, and I'm just sad that they don't have it available anymore. Besides the point. So you need 2 colors, worsted weight yarn. You'll need a 6mm, oh, my yarn just like ran away from me, a 6mm crochet hook. I've been using these tulip hooks. You can use whatever hook you're happy with. I will post the gauge somewhere here on the screen for you. Gauge is rather important for this pattern. Good thing is that the gauge does have a good wiggle room. So let's say if you're off by 1/2 inch, you are still good to go, more or less. The only things that you'll need to know is that if you are on the over my gauge, over 1/2 inch, or within the 1/2 inch. Wow, my computer completely yelled at me. Let me just mute that. Excuse me. If you are on the more side of my gauge by the 1/2 inch, just know that your beanie will be a little more oversized around the crown, like around, not your crown, around your head. And then it'll be a little bit more slouchy. If you're on the lesser side of my gauge, then your beanie will be a little bit more fitted around your head and a little less slouchy. The pattern, I basically designed this pattern just to be like in a medium slouch moment. So just wanted to let you all know that. So you can always adjust your gauge. So if you want it to be a little slouchy and not so snug and your gauge is less than mine, then I would go up a hook size and maybe loosen up your tension just a smidge to see if that helps. If you are too over my gauge and you want it to be a little less, then go down a hook size or tighten up your tension. Also keep in mind that not all worsted weight yarn is created equal. Some worsted weight yarn is a little thinner than others, so that could also play a role into your gauge. So just keep that in mind. If you're using, let's say, a yarn that's just a wee bit thicker, like Premier Basix is pretty thick, Red Heart Super Saver is pretty thick. I love this yarn, is like kind of like on the medium side. Just know that it may play a role in your gauge, and just either loosen up your tension just a smidge, because if you tend to tighten up with thicker yarn, or go down a hook size if you think that you're going to be, you're like a looser tension and whatnot. I wish I knew my words this morning. I probably should have finished my coffee. But also you'll need a something to measure your first 3 rows to get gauge, and also when your panel is completed, you'll also need this as well. I will show you what we'll be working with. So basically, you'll be working the beanie in a panel. So you'll be working basically from the brim to the crown. And you'll notice that this finished panel is bowed here where the crown is supposed to be, where the cinch is going to happen. And that's because there's half double crochet slip stitches on this side to help it not to bunch up on the top. It kind of helps the beanie slouch a little bit better, and it's not so bunchy on the top of your head. Then you'll notice here is just regular half double crochets. It's pretty straight here. So your panel will basically look like this once we're done here with this tutorial. And then we're basically going to take the panel, fold it in half like so, where the cinched edges are together for the crown, and then the brim is all flat here. So we're basically going to slip stitch this closed, and then we're going to cinch the top together. But that's essentially how the pattern's worked up. I just figured I'd throw that in there. So let's dive on in. I will be putting the instructions here on the screen of the rows we're working on. And so if you want to pause this, you can totally do that. That way you can just follow what's written on the screen. Uh-oh, my puppies are barking. Or if you need to maybe see, grab some yarn, grab your materials and all that stuff. But we're going to dive on in. I'm going to have to hit pause on this video because I think my husband and my daughter are back. So I'm going to pause this. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm laughing. Yeah, they're hanging out in the garage. So my dog started barking and I was like, oh, let me just pause this real fast and check in, see what's going on. Sorry. Okay, let's just dive on in. Let me pull up my notes because I probably should have done that in the first place, but I didn't. All right. So we're going to chain 45. And I'm gonna say this much, I would loosely chain. Loosely chaining is a little bit better. If you do it too tight, it's hard to work into them, and you'll also know where the seam is on your beanie. So if it's a little relaxed, it looks way better. So we're gonna chain 45. Ooh, I just totally lost count. Oh man, let me see where I am. 2, 4, 6, 8, 29, 30, 31. Okay. 45. Okay, so once you chain 45, we're going to work in basically the color changes of the checks. So for the adult beanie, the checks are 6 half double crochets by 3 rows. So except for the last check. The last check is actually 8. So the last check on the adult beanie is a wee bit longer. And that's totally purposeful. So I'm sure you'll probably be able to notice here is that this check is a little longer than this one, barely. It's like very small, and it's just because of the slip stitch. And when we bunch up the beanie, you won't even be able to tell that it is a longer check. So let's jump on in. So we're going to start in the second chain from the hook, and we're going to be working with our main color. So I will say that this variegated color is my main color, and then the pink is my contrast. You can pick whichever one you're working with first. I will just refer to my variegated as the main color and this one as the contrast color, the pink. So we're going to start in the second chain from the hook, and we're going to carry our yarn behind our work. So you're essentially crocheting over it. So let's go ahead and get started. So half double crochet into the second chain from the hook. And then we're going to do 6 half double crochets. So on the 6th half double crochet is where we're going to change our colors. So do not complete the 6th half double crochet with the main color, complete it with your contrast. 2, 4, 5, and then here's my 6th. So instead of yarning over and completing it with your main color, I'm going to yarn over and complete it with my contrast color.
just so it's a seamless color change. And then we're gonna go ahead and do 6 half double crochets with our contrast color. And here's a little tip, is that the color that you're carrying behind your work, give it a nice little tug just so it stays flush behind your work. Sometimes it will bunch up and you want to avoid that because it'll kind of pucker through the stitches, and it'll mess up the pattern a bit, like the checkered pattern. Like you'll kind of see like little glimpses, which is totally fine, and actually it's totally normal to kind of like see a little bit of it, but if it bunches up too much, it'll pucker through. So 2, 4, 5. Okay, here's my last half double crochet, and then we're going to yarn over with my main color. So here is my color changes so far. So what is going to happen is that we're going to repeat this twice more. So we're going to do the main color contrast twice more. Twice more. I'm sorry, I hear my daughter and my husband outside just playing, so if I giggle here and there, that's why. Let's get this one. All right, and another little tip is that, so if you don't want to have your yarn twisting the way mine is, like this is basically what's going on with my yarn. It's sometimes easier to have one skein like to your left and one skein to your right, and that way you have an easier way to separate your yarn. I'm just one of those weirdos that can't stand both of my yarns like on opposite sides, so I kind of just deal with the twisting, but there is a way to avoid that, so I just choose not to do that. So let me just untwist it real quick here. Okay, I'm untwisted, and I'm just gonna keep pulling on my color that I'm working behind here just so it doesn't bunch up. I can see if I can show you a little example of what it would look like if you don't tug on your yarn. 2, 4, 5. Here's my last. So you'll kind of notice that it kind of like peeks through here a little bit through the stitches. So if I kind of tug on this piece, it kind of flushes it out and it won't pucker through anymore. All right, so I just did one repeat. We're going to do that one more time. So one more main color, one more contrast color. Okay, so there is my repeat that I did 3 times. So basically main color contrast, main color contrast, main color contrast, and you should have 8 stitches left here, and you're going to be using your main color for those 8 stitches. So we're going to do 5 regular half double crochets, and then the last 3 is going to be half double crochet slip stitches. So we're going to go ahead and do 5 half double crochets. Oh, I did not change my yarn here. That was my mistake, guys. I'm not human, but I'm not perfect. So that sometimes happens here and there. Okay, so I fixed my mistake here. We're gonna go ahead and do 5 half double crochets. Okay, and then in the last 3, we're doing a half double crochet slip stitch. I love how there's like a knot in my yarn here somewhere. Like it just kind of came out like that of the skein. And I'm gonna zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the last 3 are gonna be half double crochet slip stitches. So we're gonna yarn over like we would normally for a half double crochet, insert our hook into the space, draw up a loop, and instead of completing the half double crochet by yarning over and pulling through these 3 loops, we're just going to pull through the 2 loops on our hook without my yarn splitting. There you go. So I'll go ahead and do it twice more here. So yarn over, insert our hook into that space, draw up a loop, and pulling through both of those loops. Yarn over, insert our hook into that space, draw up a loop, and pull through both those loops. So that was your half double crochet slip stitch. And from here, we're going to chain one with the color we're working with next. So technically we're still working with the main color because we want 3 rows of this color sequence to complete one checked. So we're going to go ahead and chain one with our main color, and we're going to turn our work. And so from here, it should be easy enough to follow the color sequence. So, but I will still say you should count. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting off screen. So we're going to turn our work and we're going to basically follow this color sequence. We're basically just going in reverse. So we're going to be doing 3 half double crochet slip stitches, making sure that your contrast color is behind. 3 half double crochet slip stitches and pull on that yarn just so it's flush. And then we're going to do 5 half double crochets here with the main color. And on that last and 5th half double crochet, change colors. Pull on that yarn, change colors. And then after we're done with 3 rows, we'll go ahead and measure our gauge. So basically the gauge is based off the first 3 rows of the pattern. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I'm sure it was in that gauge block picture I put on the screen earlier. So just wanted to let you know. Also, probably should let you know that we're working in the back loops only. Oh my Lanta, I had forgotten to say that. So this second row is worked in the back loops only. I'm sure it's on the screen where the instructions are, but I probably should have voiced it. We're working in the back loops only from here on. So for the entirety of the pattern from row 2 up, you're basically working on the back loops only. Even when we're slip stitching the beanie together, we're still working in the back loops only. So I probably should have voiced that. Oh man, it happens. It happens. I'm just, my my brain is a little bit frozen. It's a little chilly here today, so we're going to follow the sequence here all the way down. Oh, I forgot to change color, see? I just kind of get ahead of myself and I just keep going. It happens a lot. And I'll frog it and redo it. Totally, totally normal over here. Okay, and I'll show you a little tip once we get to the last half double crochet of this row. I need to untangle this knot. Oh my. Okay. Sorry about that. I should probably zoom out. That way I'm not getting off screen all the time. So we're going to keep working this. Forgot to change my color again. You can go ahead and judge me. That's totally fine. You can go ahead and judge me. Leave a comment and saying, oh, Priscilla, get your act together. You can do it. It probably won't change anything. I'll probably still continue messing up here and there. Okay. Almost at my last. I'm at my last 6 here. And on the last half double crochet, we're going to complete the half double crochet using both strands. And so I'll show you in a moment once I get there. Okay, I'm at my last half double crochet here. So we're going to insert our hook into, or yarn over like we would as a half double crochet, insert hook into that back loop only with the next stitch. Draw up a loop. I would tug on that yarn that we've been carrying behind just so it's nice and flushed. And instead of yarning over with our main color to complete the half double crochet, we're going to yarn over with both strands and we're going to pull through. And then from here, we're going to chain one with the color we're working with next. So we need one more row of this color sequence. So we're still working with our main, so we're going to go ahead and chain one. And I'm going to tug on that contrast color just so it kind of hides underneath that chain. And we're going to turn our work. So far this is what yours should be looking like. So you should have 2 rows completed with the same color sequence. So you should have the main color on top of the main color and a contrast color on top of the contrast color. So we're gonna have one more row similar to this, exactly the same color change, and just make sure where your tail is. This is like my little reminder where the tail is, where your initial tail, like where you started your chain, is where your half double crochet slip stitches will be. That way we don't that way you don't get confused. I tend to keep that in mind while I'm making these beanies. If I see the tail, then I know that's where my half double crochet slip stitches go. Just a little reminder. So make sure you keep that contrast color behind, working in the back loops only. We're gonna work this 3rd row, the same color sequence. My dogs are pacing, so if you hear any paw prints, it's them just pacing around me. Okay. Still working the same sequence. I'm sure I'll leave the instructions here on the screen for you so we can follow, just in case I'm going too quick for you or too slow. One or the other. Oh, I'm switching colors here. Let's make sure. Oh. Okay. Oh, we're nearing the end here. You'll probably see me naturally just keep tugging on that yarn that's being worked behind, just to make sure it stays flushed and not bunched up. So here I'm on my last check. I'm doing 5 half double crochets here, regular, and then 3 half double crochet slip stitches to end the row. Okay. And so this is where I was talking about you're going to chain 1 with the color you're working with next. So I'm working with the contrast color next because the color sequence is going to change. So basically after every 3rd row, you're going to swap out the color that's going on top. So here, oh, my yarn. Here, we're going to chain 1 with our contrast color, and then we're going to turn our work. But before we do any further, we're going to go ahead and measure our gauge. So this gauge here, let me just get a quick reminder because I don't remember these things. So you want it to be approximately 12.5 inches pretty much tall and 2 inches wide, and you have a 1/2 inch of wiggle room. So if I am within a 1/2 inch of that gauge, I'm good to go. And I will say my hands are pretty frozen right now, so I may have stiffened up just a smidge, but we're gonna be okay. And I typically measure like to the end. Some people measure differently. That's just how I do it. So like right where the end is. So I hit right on the jackpot, 12.5. I mean, this is my pattern, I guess, so my gauge is pretty much spot on. But if you are within ½ inch, so let's say if yours is about 12 inches tall, you're still good to go. Or if you're at 13 inches, you are still good to go. So, or you're in the middle of there, you know, it could be 12 1/4, it can be 11 3/4. You are, or not 11 3/4, I would say like maybe 12 1/4, 12 3/4, you're still good. So this is great. And then you want it to be at least 2 inches. Each check row should be at least 2 inches wide or tall, however you want to say that. So mine is hitting right under the 2, so like just a smidge. And that's pretty much good. That's good to go. So knowing this, if your checks are a little under the 2 inch, it might be just a little bit more of a fitted feel around the head. But there is a decent stretch to this. So with that back loop half double crochet, it gives it a nice little stretch. So I wouldn't worry too much about it if you are like a little below the 2 inch width of your checks. So we're going to go ahead and continue this. So you're going to basically repeat rows 2 and 3 until you have 10 checked rows. So just be sure that after you finish your 3rd row, you're going to, like 3 rows of the check, the color sequence, you switch. So basically once you finish 3, you're going to change 3, and then you're going to change, and you're going to continue not 10 checked rows. Oh my goodness, you need 12 checked rows. I'm still in the child size mindset here. So you need 12 check rows for this beanie. Don't mind me. I probably put a little edit here on the screen from when I said 10, but I need to voice it for make me feel better. Okay, so you need 12 checked rows. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of the rows off camera, and then I will report back with my finished panel. So you can go ahead and continue. If you want to pause this video, you should, because by the time I get back, it'll just be the panels. Okay guys, I'm back with my finished panel. I have 12 checked rows. And we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna flatten this out a bit so I can measure. So your panel should measure about 19.5 inches long, wide, however you wanna say that, wide. I know mine's gonna be probably a little less than 19.5, only because my checked rows were under 2 inches. So like if your gauge is under, my gauge, like under the ½ inch, you know, the less of my gauge, know that your width is going to be a little off as well. So there is the wiggle room as well of a ½ inch for the width of your panel. So keep that in mind. So I went ahead and just kind of flattened this out. And your last row should have ended towards the brim. So right here where the regular half double crochets are, not where the crown or the cinch is. So let's go ahead and measure this. I'm gonna think it's about like 19 inches. So I kind of flatten my panel a bit because it likes to kind of like bridge up from the back loop half double crochet. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure. So wow, I'm right at 19 inches. So that is good to go. And it's just gonna be maybe just a little bit more snug around my head, because I think I made this for myself. Let's go ahead and assemble. So with your last half double crochet, you basically yarned over with both strands. This is also maker's choice. So if you decide not to do this throughout the pattern, that's totally fine. I just do it. So we're gonna pick a color to slip stitch our beanie closed. I only use 1 strand for this. It's up to you. You can use both if you'd like. I just feel that if you use 1 strand, it's a little bit more flushed and it's less bulky. So I'm gonna pick the contrast color to slip stitch our panel together. So I'm gonna snip this main color, leaving a long enough tail to weave in afterwards. So that one's gone. And I'm going to chain 1 with my contrast color. And then we're going to fold the panel. I feel like I say hot dog, that's what literally goes through my head, but like you're gonna fold it like so. And you want the cinched part of the beanie to be together, and then the brim part, which is the regular half double crochets, together. And then we're going to basically slip stitch up. So I think I did that backwards for me, because I personally like my stitches to be towards myself, like towards me, like while we're slip stitching. I hope that wasn't confusing. Like I prefer the row that we just finished to be towards me, and then the initial chain away from me. So that's personal preference. I don't think it really matters which way you do it. I just prefer it this way. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna still use the back loops only. This tail is gonna drive me nuts. Okay, and we're going to slip stitch to connect these, connect the panel to make it look like a tube. So little tip here is to make sure that you keep your checks aligned while you're slip stitching. That way you don't miss any stitches or skip any stitches. It could happen. I think it happened to me when I was my first couple beanies. So we're gonna go ahead and just insert our hook into the back loop of the stitches that we just worked, and then insert our hook into the initial chain, and we're going to do a slip stitch. I will say my slip stitches are rather loose, so the looser the better, only because you don't want it to not have that stretch. If it's too tight in this little area, and when you put it on your head, you're gonna notice like a big stretch on this part. So I like to slip stitch loosely. That way it gives this like a organic stretch instead of like a forced stretch. So we're just gonna go up this panel, slip stitching, and making sure that all your checks are still lining up. And I tend to go through both of the yarn from the initial chain. Again, this is personal preference. You can go through one of the colors if you want. And if you feel like your slip stitches are too tight, you can just go up a hook size for this part to help you loosen up those stitches. Because slip stitches sometimes can get tight depending on how you hold your yarn, because sometimes people hold their yarn differently in this hand, like a tension. I don't really have a tension. My yarn kind of just weaves through this hand, and I kind of just hold it like this, but it's just gliding through my hand, nothing crazy. Yeah, I almost got stuck. So I'm just gonna double check to make sure my checks are still lining up, and they are. So we're gonna make it up to the crown. And this seam will be on the inside of your beanie, just an FYI. It's not gonna be protruding out on the outside. We're gonna basically, after we cinch the top, we're gonna flip the beanie inside out. Okay, almost there. All right. For the last few over here, it gets a little funky because of the half double crochet slip stitches, but that's okay. Muster through on my last one. It's a wee bit tight. Okay, and we're done slip stitching. So from here, what I do is I basically kind of pull a little bit out. I think I said this in my last tutorial. I'm like, leave a good enough tail to basically weave in and out of the loops on the top. I'll say about like a good, at least minimum of like 10 inches of a tail, just so you have it to weave in through the top. So now that you snipped off your yarn that you were working with, we're gonna just pull it out of this slip stitch, pull it tight. And then from here, we're gonna need a darning needle. And we're gonna feed it through the same yarn we used to slip stitch. And we're going to basically weave in and out of the top loops of the top of this crown. So basically I like to go just smaller groups. Some people like to go like bigger heaps. The bigger your weaving in and out is gonna bunch up like more. I don't know how to explain that. So if you're a little bit more consistent and do like smaller weaving in and out, it's gonna help the cinch be a little bit more uniform. So I basically am weaving in and out of the top loops, like right, it's basically where the chain is from the half double crochet slip stitches, like the chain one that we use to turn. It's basically what I'm using to weave in and out. And you'll notice if I pull tight on this, this will start to cinch up. So that's essentially what we're doing. So we're gonna continue around. And if you're just consistent, it will be better. And if you wanna keep pulling on it so it cinches, you can. Sometimes I just weave in and out and then I pull at the end. Totally up to you. But I already started yanking on it, so might as well continue. And we're gonna make it all the way around until we hit that beginning tail where our slip knot is from the beginning. My slip knot's right here. You can still keep pulling on this yarn if you want to. And I think I'm here. Okay, then from here, just take your needle out and we're basically going to pull to get that hole closed. And don't pull too tight, because if you pull too tight, the yarn will actually snap. I've done that a few times. So what helps me is I basically kind of try to assist the pulling. Okay, that is closed enough. And then we're going to use this tail from our slip knot in the beginning to tie a knot. I tie a couple knots. And if you're a type that wants to add a pom, you could go ahead and add your button. If you're the type to put a button down for a pom, that's how I attach mine. Let me see if I have a button in here. I do. So like sometimes I'll sew on a button here before I snip these ends, sew this one on, and then feed the pom through this little tiny hole and wrap it around the button. That's totally up to you. Or you can just be like me and not want a pom on this one and snip off the yarn. And since that's just the crown, no one's really gonna see that. So I just basically knotted about 4 times to make sure it was secure. And then now we're gonna flip our beanie inside out. And we're gonna do a little zhuzhing. I think that's what I call it, zhuzhing. Sometimes I kind of play around with the crown, and then we're going to weave in this end. So I just basically weave it right into where that slip stitch join is. You can weave in your ends however you feel fit for your beanie. This is just how I do it. And since this part is going to be folded up, it's okay if it's showing just a little bit. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. I'm gonna snip my yarn. And then I like to have this seam, where is the seam? Right here, towards the back. That's just the personal preference. So I'll just flip it over and I'll basically kind of give my beanie a little shape in, fold my brim, and there you have it. That is the adult size beanie. I feel like I should try it on just so I can show y'all. But before I do, I'll maybe add like a little tag on it. Why not? I have a couple colors I can pick from. Maybe I'll just do a brown one because it seems like that's what I got. Or I have a gray. This green is cute. I think I have some other ones. Let me see. So these labels I do have available on my other shop, Pate Studios. If you are interested in some happy hippie tags, I think that's super cute. So let's see if I have a ribbon. I may not have one in my little bag. let me see. I may only have butts to rivets. I don't think I have any tops for it, but I use a Chicago screws to place my tags on, like so. But I can go grab that before I try it on for you guys, so I'll be right back. Okay, here's my finished beanie. I went and grabbed a little Chicago screw. I call them rivets. So here she is, and it's so cute, and it has just a little bit of a slouch, just how I like it. If you're more of like a fitted gal or boy who prefers more of like a fitted, like on the crown, you head to my previous tutorial on the checked beanie pattern in the child size. There's also a modification for a junior size, teen size, and it's basically worked up with the same amount of checks, the 12 checked rows. It's just a little shorter, so you'll avoid this slouch. So I did have a couple of testers that prefer a fitted beanie, and that was not me. And they made the teen size, and it worked perfectly. But yeah, this is all done. I also should mention that in the written pattern, I do have a mod for a solid brim. So if you decide that you don't want the whole beanie to be checked, don't worry about it. We have a solid brim modification within the pattern, the written pattern. So I may do the tutorial for this probably next year when I have time. Like right now it's like too close to Christmas, and I'm kind of like, I have too much on my plate right now to make this video, but it will come out if you're the type that doesn't want to purchase the pattern and you would prefer a tutorial, like if you're a visual learner, you know what I'm saying? So this will be up next year on my channel to learn how to do the solid brim. But yeah, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I hope that you subscribe to my channel. I could make more tutorials just like this, even though they are a hot mess. Like, I'm unscripted all the time. So if you just want to hang out and crochet with a friend, maybe watch how to do a tutorial, this is a good place to be. But yeah, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad that you made a beanie, or if you didn't make a beanie and it wasn't like what you were looking for, that's okay too. There's a ton of beanie patterns out there that you could basically stumble upon even here on YouTube. So yeah, I'm gonna shut up now and and probably clean something up because my whole desk is messy. I have beanies everywhere. I probably should finish this one up too. So, but yeah, thank you so much. Bye.